Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. Long time no here. My name is John Sullivan. You may know me from my Twitter page, Buffalo Hold'em, or from Daily Fantasy Sports back in the day. Anyway, I'm back with another episode talking about sports betting and sometimes daily fantasy sports. And this is my actual fifth attempt at episode 25. I actually recorded it once over a month ago, and I deleted it because I thought I was being too mean to people I pointed out in the episode. So I kind of regret doing that because some of them I think deserved it. But at any rate, I tried twice to record this episode with Sean Is Money from Miracle Covers, and I had tech problems on my end. My current guest setup is outdated for the software I use, so I'm just too old school, huh? And then I recorded solo again, but I did not save it correctly, and it disappeared in the temp files. And it's been a total fail for the last 6 weeks. But I'm going old school today. I'm recording on my digital recorder with my studio mic. And hopefully we get a clean take. And I'm happy to be here, and I'm glad you're listening. And today is the last day. It is the 20th of June, the last day of the session for the New York State Assembly to try and pass sports betting. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. For those of us in New York, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. We still have online, offshore. We still have the tribal casinos in New York, which can offer sports betting at any time if they choose to do so. And I know for a fact that the Turning Stone properties, they have 3 properties around east of Syracuse, and they're going to offer sports betting very soon. And I assume that Seneca will come around. The only silver lining from New York not legislating sports betting is that I don't have to worry about DraftKings coming into New York State and fucking everything up. So stick to Massachusetts and New Jersey, guys, and we'll see you around the way. All right, before I get to the main topic of our little podcast today, I want to take a second to recap my less than stellar handicapping in 2018. I was rolling along last year. I finished 2017 CFL up 8 units, 5th consecutive winning season, and I finished the NFL regular season up 3 units, but I made the mistake of fading the Eagles in each round of the playoffs and finished overall down 3 units on the NFL season. I still remember I had a prop bet for the Super Bowl of Nick Foles over 1.5 yards rushing, and he never had to scramble once. He did have one play in the first quarter where he had clear lane for at least 10 yards, and he threw the ball anyway, and he never had to scramble. So lost that one. Anyway, Aussie Rules has been easily my worst sport. Last playoffs, I went 2-10. In last September. I basically faded the Richmond Tigers in every round of the playoffs, and they were kind of a 500 team during the regular season, but they just crushed the competition and cost me some bets there. And crossing over into 2018, if you count the last 2 months of 2017, I'm currently on a 5-month losing streak in Aussie Rules. I'm up in June with a couple weeks to go, so hopefully I'll break that streak. But overall, I'm still fade material. This is only my second season handicapping AFL, and I got to tell you, last year during the regular season, it was not high variance. The favorites were very consistent until the playoffs. Then things got a little different, and this year it's been kind of the same. There's some bad teams that are really bad this year, but everybody from like 8th on up, there's 18 teams in the league, is pretty competitive with one another, the top 8, which are the playoff teams. So we'll see what happens as it goes on, but I'm definitely going to be a little more cautious. We're in the bye weeks right now in the AFL, so there's only like 6 or 7 games a week, so I'm trying to cut back on my wagers. I really do enjoy watching Aussie Rules. I wish the games were live at a more reasonable time for me. They're usually anywhere from midnight to 6 a.m. East Coast U.S. time. So I either have to get up early or stay up late. Usually like a primetime game is, a featured game is going at 2:30 in the morning on Saturday morning. So it's really, if you're an insomniac, it's great. But they do a really good job with highlights and condensed games, things you can see on YouTube and stuff if you want to keep up. So maybe I'll do an episode in the future just on Aussie Rules. Maybe I can have a guest on that knows something about it more than I do, because I'm still a novice, but that would be interesting to me. I hope it would be interesting to you. So today's topic is not going to be about sports betting legislation, but this is a topic that's been debated on gambling Twitter, and I'm going to pose the question: what makes good or great sports betting content? Now, with the expansion of sports betting across the United States, there have become a bunch of new sports media operations, and in my opinion, most of them are complete shit. There's just no other way around it. And I won't name names at the moment, but there's new ones and there's older ones. The worldwide leader, even, their gambling content is pretty bad. So Rufus Peabody posed this question on Twitter: what makes good sports betting content? And I replied to him, and my exact reply included the following. Number 1, differentiate between betting for entertainment and betting for a profit motive. Number 2, bankroll management above all else. And number 3, both qualitative and quantitative methodologies exist for handicapping sports. So let's break those down one by one. So let's start with the qualitative argument. Many cappers like Rufus and Rob Pizzola and MLB Model use a quant approach to build a model for the market. Therefore, they bet the numbers, not the team. I've heard both Pizzola and Rufus say things like that in past podcasts. Those two also claim to purchase good data, so it cannot be circulated throughout the rest of the market. In other words, proprietary data. Somebody comes up with a model or a data set or a data source that helps improve their quantitative approach, and their primary objective is to secure that so that most of the other people cannot access it, and therefore it won't affect the market. It will make them sharper and make the market softer. So this, my point about all this is many sharps think it's pointless to educate square bettors. Either they won't heed the lessons, or making them sharper would make pro bettors' jobs harder. Both of these notions really don't hold water. I firmly believe you can teach bettors to be less sucky, for lack of a better term, without giving away edges. Example, don't play parlays, at least until you're betting limits on sides and totals. Without getting into minutiae about something like that, what I'm trying to get at is the qualitative side of handicapping. You can teach somebody a non-numbers way to help them handicap a game and not, give away your edge or, make them super sharp, but you'll make them suck less. So I won't spend much time on it, but what I call qualitative handicapping, for example, if somebody on your gambling Twitter timeline bitches about in-game coaching decisions, they don't do enough qualitative handicapping. A prime example of this for me is John Fox, former NFL coach. He's in the booth now. He paid for quite a few of my meals with his conservative coaching, his constant punting, basically coaching not to lose. That is something that's hard to put into a model for most people. And, a lot of fantasy sports players don't really consider that. They just consider how many pass attempts a game, how many rush attempts a game, blah, blah, blah. And, in sports betting, coaching matters. It matters quite a bit. It's just one aspect of qualitative handicapping. Rule changes, players quitting. This happens way more often than you think. In a lot of sports, players quit. Tennis, Aussie rules. Also teams running up the score. Example number one, Bill Belichick. And don't think that when a team has a fighting chance to beat the Patriots, they're not going to try to run up the score in the other direction. So these things are qualitative factors that will affect your wagers, on totals, on point spreads. And, the models don't always. They know the model will give you what an average score is, what an average spread should be. But there are qualitative factors that affect, and, that's something that a lot of, people media can impart to the Barstool bettor and not go down narrative street or, give away your edge. So that's just one example. What's the most important thing that nobody talks about in sports betting media is bankroll management. And it should be discussed way more than it is. Rufus and Jeff had Sports Cheetah on, and they basically glossed over it. All they said was, you'll never get anywhere if you don't have $100K lined up from the get-go to start betting, which is not how you grow an audience for a sports betting podcast. You need to teach people how to do it from the beginning. You need to teach people the process, regardless of the monetary reward. I had a decent bankroll to bet with. I got sick. I basically went broke. Started to grow my bankroll again. I admit that I had success growing it because of Bitcoin, but sometimes you have to start with very little. Sometimes all three of those guys in that podcast talked about how they got free rolled to start their betting careers. Although Jeff was through the blackjack team, but Rufus and Cheetah both were free rolled. They basically got to bet for free and earned a commission on their winnings. However, in a later episode of Bet the Process, Rufus and Jeff discussed bankroll management again, and actually at my request, I tweeted them, and Rufus said he uses quarter Kelly to bet size, and then he also said he never bets more than 1% of his bankroll, which blew my mind, because if both of these statements are true, there can only be one of two possible explanations. The first is he's bet sizing incorrectly and missing a ton of EV. That he should be, if he does have an EV bet, he should be betting way more than 1% of his bankroll. The second possible outcome is his bankroll is so big, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars, that his 1% wager would either be a max bet or a bet big enough to move markets. So it's got to be one or the other. I think he may have misspoke, and I don't think he explained it as well as he could have. But basically, when they talk about bankroll management, all they do is talk about Kelly criterion, betting 1% of your bankroll. And I know 1% of Rufus's bankroll is a lot more than what I bet. So I'm not discounting what he's saying, but that just seems to be dismissive and not helpful to people that are trying to learn about sports betting. I mean, their whole podcast is about learning the process, examining the process. People need to learn how to manage a bankroll from the beginning. It helps with the variance and makes the bettor more selective in general. If you just say, build $100,000 bankroll and then start betting 1%, and just start firing, that doesn't teach bankroll management. It's not hard to explain, it's hard to practice. That's really what I'm saying. I use a 30-bet bankroll, and I use, and it grows, the size of my bet goes up and down every week. So it's basically 3.3%. Each wager is 3.3% of your bankroll. So I have a higher risk of ruin, obviously, than somebody who bets 1%, but I'm always betting the same percentage of my bankroll, even if my bankroll gets smaller. So if I lose several bets in a row, I'm still not over betting. So now my last point, as we get back to sports betting media content, we talked about qualitative versus quantitative handicapping. We talked about bankroll management. And the last one is going to revolve around picks. So you talk about betting for profit versus betting for entertainment. Obviously, there's people bet on the Oscars, people bet on wrestling, and people even bet on the Super Bowl just for entertainment. They want to win money, but it's not their primary goal. It's the sweat, it's the entertainment value. If you want to talk about picks for entertainment value, that's cool, and a lot of people do that. And however, there are people that are interested, and there's very little of it, of handicapping content for people that have a profit motive, people that want to bet to win money. And everybody who is an experienced sports bettor knows that it is possible to be a winning sports bettor. Anybody you listen to that says it's impossible to beat sports betting, if you're serious about it, you can turn off their media right after you read that. You know that that's not true. They wouldn't try to limit you if it was impossible to win. So, but getting back to picks, everyone knows I'm anti-tout, and I realize people sell picks to monetize their content. I believe you should never pay for picks, and I understand that that's a business model that some people follow. I don't believe in that. I don't encourage you to do that, but I understand why people do that. However, I believe that sports betting media can give away good picks, sometimes give away good picks without giving away edge. It could be in a really small market, like Aussie Rules, or perhaps a one-off event, say like Mayweather-McGregor, has huge public interest. Obviously, most sharp people knew Mayweather was going to win that fight. It was the Great White Hype all over again. Giving away one good free pick every once in a while, every week, can help build traffic for your content. I'm still in the teach a man to fish camp, but throwing in an Easter egg every now and then is good for business. So, if you can develop media content that has good information, it teaches people to bet appropriately, bet size, and manage their bankroll appropriately. Give them, one good pick, and teach them how to find other good picks. That would be ideal, as long as you can find sponsorship. Excuse me. Teaching a new bettor not to suck doesn't necessarily equal teaching them to win. So, you can make people better, make their money last longer at the sports book, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm sure there's people out there that totally disagree with me, and they're entitled to do that. And I'm always learning, love to learn more. If you have any feedback, please at me at the podcast, or at me at on Twitter at Buffalo Hold'em. So, any way you slice it, I think sports betting media has to get better than it is now. You just look at a site like Roto-Grinders, which is DFS, but they've been around since 2010, and it's a total shit show. It's it's tout coaching, it's data tools that don't really help unless you have an insane amount of bankroll, and it's not worth what they're charging for it. And anybody that tries to exchange good information in their forums usually gets shut down. So speaking from experience here. Other sites like Barstool and Action Network are going to have to do a lot less clowning, a lot less Narrative Street, and more legit capping. So, you're going to get, if you don't pay people to make good content, you're going to get shit content. It's pretty simple. If all you care about is, smoke show videos and pizza reviews and, weekends in Vegas where I lost my shoes, that kind of stuff, then that's for you. It's not good enough. It's not, the better's going to get more sophisticated and the media has to catch up. Although, if they want to bro it up, they're going to bro it up. The future doesn't look bright to me, my friends. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I really appreciate everybody giving me a listen today, and I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad to have time to record another podcast. I don't know when the next one's coming, but CFL is back, baby. If you want to follow my picks on Twitter, at Buffalo Hold'em, I've updated all my records for all three sports, AFL, CFL, NFL. Just search my timeline for, NFL betting record, AFL betting record, and you'll get the link to my Google spreadsheet. So, glad to be back. I hope you guys are winning some money. Enjoy the summer, and until next time, bet like no one's watching. Take care.